the show. Now, this episode we're going to be talking about short-term shelter solutions for whether you're bugging out or trying to get back home during a SHTF or situation where there's no rule of law. And the reason that got me started on this idea was the simple fact that, since I work so far from home, I was wondering where would I go if I needed to shelter in place temporarily. What were good ideas, what were bad ideas? And so here's what I came up with, and we're going to get started. First, looking at places that may not be the best place to shelter in place, even on a temporary basis. Okay, so if you have a tent and say it does not blend well with your background, that may not be your best option for temporary shelter in place. Also, moving on to the next, for more sturdier structures, I would not recommend any kind of a grocery store or other store where you can find resources as a temporary shelter method. Now, you can go to these places to get resources in the uh, especially the onset of the situation, or possibly if the place looks abandoned enough. However, you can have people that are already sheltering in place there, or if you choose to shelter in place there yourself, you may have people that come in other words, uninvited guests, and if they take you by surprise in these places, um, the worst case scenario is that you get killed. Another place that I would not recommend are abandoned buildings that look like they're about to fall apart. Obviously, they're not sturdy enough, or their roofs may be caved in, or anything of that nature, but something that does not make them structurally sound. Now, next we're going to look at places that may be safe for temporary shelter. Now, some buildings that are abandoned may actually be pretty sturdy and offer some shelter for a temporary basis. And what I mean by that is anywhere between 24 and 48 hours. I would not stay there any longer than that, since you really want to keep on the move in a bug out or even in a get home situation. But any place that looks pretty sturdy, whether its roof is all together or not, well, whether really its roof has to be together. Another place that I think would be overlooked are schools. Um, that's probably one of the last places anybody would want to go, but schools would be a good place. Commercial buildings also would be a good place, but I would not recommend really tall skyscrapers. I would go for the ones in office parks that are about 3 to 4 stories tall. They're mainly big. They're obviously commercial grade sturdy, and like I said, they're very big, so it's hard for really anyone to pinpoint you. Plus, if you're in a vehicle, it gives you, hopefully there's some cars still in the parking lot, so you can actually park your car there and hide out, and that would be the last place anyone actually think anyone was actually temporarily staying in, simply because of the simple fact that um, your car would blend in with the rest of the other vehicles. Okay, now we're going to talk about places that are a really bad idea for short-term shelter. First, we'll start off with the Family Dollar, Dollar Trees, uh, Dollar Generals, Extreme Dollar Plus stores that are in lower income areas. Basically, because especially in the onslaught, they'll be looked at as resource rich, and so you still may get looters or last minute people trying to get stuff out of there that weren't picked off before. Next thing is a home under construction. Now, if it doesn't have any windows, doors, just has a roof on ish, doesn't have, it's not fully almost together, that'd be a bad idea simply because you don't have any walls. It's very thin at that point, and so you have a lot of potential dangers there. And if anybody saw you light a fire, they'd see that thing from a mile away. Next thing is chemical plants or any other industrial plants where there's gases, fluids, just kind of running rampant because in a post-apocalyptic world, um, they're basically going unchecked. So just simply for dangerous fumes alone, it's a great place to hide trying to get away from somebody, but at the same time, it's just dangerous for your health in general. Next place is a warehouse. Now this one's kind of obvious. Um, One, it's incredibly resource rich. People will see that same thing like distribution centers, and people will come after whatever's in there if there's anything in there, and they don't care. So they will attempt to go in and uh, and there's too many entry points really. So I would never recommend a warehouse, and safety factor is just a huge liability. A couple other places that I think would be a bad idea for short-term shelter would be an armory or a military base, mainly because those two facilities would be pretty much the first thing the members of the military would ransack for resources, weapons, food, water, etc., and even vehicles. So I wouldn't recommend those. Now, however, if a SHTF situation stretched out longer, they would probably be a good idea because they'd be the last place anybody would go looking for anything because of the simple fact that they've been pilfered through already. Okay, now the wild cards, we're going to go back to new home construction real quick, but this time we're going to look at homes that are nearing completion. So we're talking like 85 to 95% completion, basically ready to move in status. Of course, you got all the doors, windows, all the siding, everything pretty much. The only thing that's missing is the grass and the family move in. So you can easily find places inside these structures where the inner walls will actually keep you hidden from the outside world if you had to bug out or you're trying to get back home without being found. Another area that we've thought about and we discussed in detail in our groups is airports. Now, these can be large international airports, or they can be smaller um, regional airports. And the thought behind that was most airports are going to be flat. So you can see, especially if you go for a vantage point, say like a tower or um, a taller building, that you can see the majority of the airport grounds to see if anybody's coming towards you or anything else. But also, airports tend to be um, one of the last places that anybody would ever come. Usually, it's one of the first ones um, that get completely abandoned uh, in the wake of an SHTF or some other emergency situation. A lot of people that have no reason to be at the airport will actually try to leave um, unless they're hoping that another flight will come through. But in the end, for an extended amount of time, they will leave the airport. So one thing that airports tend to offer, especially the international airports, are going to be resources for fuel, food, water, things like that, and they'll be in places that nobody will ever think to look. So these are just some of the ideas that we've thought about and we've kicked around, and we've talked about to other preppers and survivalists. Uh, and leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. And like, comment, subscribe, and remember, prepare yourself because tomorrow is never promised.